Hey everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and get started because I'm still pretty new. So I don't really have a lot of followers just yet. And I don't want to keep y'all waiting at all. Um, I've been surfing around the communities, various communities, trying to see where I wanted to land within the sphere of YouTube and what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, how I wanted to be a part of this community. Um, and I really don't have any direction as far as that just yet. But what I wanted to do is just take a moment to kind of get you guys acclimated to who I am and where I came from, and tell you how I got to be who I am. Um, Becoming an alternative person was kind of a journey for me. Um, it was not easy. It's not something that I just kind of like decided to do. It was organic, of course, but it was not easy at all. Um, One of the reasons for that is because I was not raised in an environment where um, which was conducive to me being open to being experimental with anything. Um, you see, I was raised Jehovah's Witness, and I want to say born and raised that way because my mom was. Uh, she wasn't hardcore about it until maybe I was 6 or 7, if I remember correctly. Um, but she was hardcore about it and still is. My dad was not. He was not religious at all. Thankfully, I had that going for me. But my mother, um, and this is hard for me because my mom and I have just rekindled our relationship after being disconnected for 2 years. This is a very and I'm sorry to be mm, as slow speaking about this as I am, because I know by doing this, it's probably going to cause another rift between us. And I love my mother very much because she is actually a very pivotal she's very pivotal in me being who I am. Um, she is the most amazing person I have ever met in my entire life. She is the one who allows me and who has taught me to be as fearless and as beautiful and as strong and as gutsy and no nonsense as I am, while at the same time completely holding me back um, in certain aspects of my life. So, growing up Jehovah's Witness is not an easy thing. Um, when you're younger, when you're younger, it's easy. You're in a bubble. You grow up in a situation or a congregation, so to speak, or a church, um, where everything seems perfect. You know, as a Black woman growing up in a religion or a church like that, this is a space where you don't really experience racism. That was new to me. You don't experience being judged based upon the color of your skin. You don't I didn't. I knew that it existed in the outside world, and that is what was um that's one of the reasons why it was so easy for me too to kind of shun the outside world and think that this religion was better than everything else because I didn't deal with racism within my congregation. Granted, I saw it outside of my congregation when I visited other congregations. I did see it. I saw it small, especially if I visited primarily what homogenous congregations, and when I say homogenous, I mean if I visited primarily white congregations or if I visited primarily uh, African American congregations, and I say that in others too. If I visited primarily Japanese or congregations, because I also lived in I grew up in Carson, and so we could travel to various congregations. So I would go to congregations in Gardena where it was mostly Asian, and so I would go and I would see other congregations where my grandmother would live in Gardena, and I would notice that there would be, Japanese congregations where they would come out and the sisters and brothers would be the kids would be standoffish towards me because I was darker skinned, even though my grandmother spoke the language and she is of, descent, she was able to um, fit in there. They would give me looks because they weren't used to seeing someone of my skin tone within that congregation in that space. When I went to congregations that were more in the Los Angeles area, while I was in foster care, um, I would get discriminated against because of course I sound like someone who's considered whitewashed, and I would have issues there. So there's that. Growing up in as Jehovah's Witness is difficult. Um, in school, um, I was always the overachiever, I guess you could say. I was very studious. I love to learn, and I got that way because growing up, when you go as a child to your meetings or your church, there's meetings all week. There's book study, there's Sunday, not they don't have Sunday school, but you have your meetings on Sunday. You have your watchtower meeting, and then you have your public talks and things like that. You have various times throughout your week where you can show how much you know, and I love that. So, I loved being, and my mother was uh, very, um, good about making us study ahead of time. So, I learned to read early, and it was very important for me to be in those publications, highlighting things and looking up scriptures and, doing whatever I could so that I could be the first one to raise my hand and comment, so that the brothers would see me and they would, be ready to ask. The sister, would be ready to comment whenever there was a question that was raised. And it got to the point where when it was time to do talks, the brothers were ready for me to give my talk, and they were, confident that I was going to be one of the sisters that was, that gave a good talk. The other sisters in the congregation, if they weren't completely solid in their material and being able to give a talk, they would come to me, and I would be able to help write the talk and deliver it that way. The younger ones that were coming up were also confident in having me help, as well. Um, that translated into me being a very good student in class, at school. I was able to read early. I was able to answer questions that teachers and everything were. I was able to do the assignments. So I didn't have a hard time when I was in school with the teachers. I was unfortunately, you know, bullied with my classmates, but that's to be expected because I was the odd man out with celebrations. Um, but if I'm being honest, I didn't care. I mean, I hear everyone's stories. I wish I had those same stories that no, I don't wish that I had those same stories because I don't wanna have I wanna give the perspective as to I didn't have the the experience of abuse when it came to being a Jehovah's Witness. I didn't have the sexual abuse. I didn't have the verbal abuse. The abuses that I have within the congregation were more of the embarrassment of being a teenager. Um, as I got older, I was baptized at the age of 16. Since I was a super sister, I started, studying and preparing for baptism between the ages of 13 and 15. And so I was baptized at Dodger Stadium at the age of 16. And I can remember, oh man, my mother was one of those, and she was so proud of me. She was scared. She was scared. She had reason to be because she knew. I'm sure she knew that my faith was shaky, but she knew that I wanted to do it. Um, but I was nervous to be, baptized at the age of 16 in Dodger Stadium. And I don't know if any of you have ever been to Dodger Stadium, but when they used to have Jehovah's Witnesses at the Dodger Stadium, this was and Dodger Stadium is no joke. We would still be standing room only at Dodger Stadium, and the whole floor of Dodger Stadium, massive. I don't even know if my mother has pictures of it, and I'm still proud of myself back then and there because not because of being a Jehovah's Witness, but because I dedicated myself to that. I dedicated myself to something like that. And I really wish I could say that I did, that I had like this horrible experience, but I didn't. I didn't have that. Now, as I got past that, I started to learn and I started to become, when I got into high school, I started to realize that it was all bullshit. As I got older, I started to realize and I started to become more aware of being an adult and having adult-sized questions and having an adult brain and being cognizant of questions and needing the answers to things that people just couldn't answer anymore. That is when the trouble started to happen. When I got to high school, elementary school, junior high, those questions, that's the easy part. That is the easy part. When you start to grow and you start to become aware of the real world outside of high school, even high school, when you start to become aware of the things around you. See, my mom and I had issues when I was 16, 17 years old. I had to move into foster care and I was placed into a foster care system in a house that was not a Jehovah's Witness house. And I learned very quickly what the real world was like. And that was a shock to my system. My little insular bubble was burst. And I got to experience what reality was. And when I returned home from being in foster care, There were no questions that could be answered with this little with this religion. There were no questions that could be answered, and it was bothering me. It was fucking with my head, and I couldn't rely on what was being told to me anymore. I couldn't do it. I couldn't rely on the shit that was being told to me anymore. I couldn't rely on the experiences that I had had as a child anymore. I had to rely on real thought. I had to rely on real experience. I had to find the answers for myself because I wasn't getting them. I wasn't getting answers from the brothers that were being put in a position that were supposed to help me. I was being told that Jehovah was supposed to take care of this, that Jehovah was supposed to be providing the answers for me, but Jehovah wasn't providing those answers for me. And that wasn't enough for me. And so as I got older and I started having more critical thought, um, I decided it was time for me to leave. I did. I decided it was time for me to leave, and leaving was hard. Um, Actually, no, it wasn't hard. Leaving was easy. I just kind of faded away. I faded away and I moved on and had silently, even. I moved on silently and didn't look back for a few years. Um, I didn't even discover I didn't write any letters. I didn't um oh, and I forgot to tell you this what my biggest issues were. I told you that I was a super sister, and I was super sister. None I didn't really have a lot of friends growing up inside the congregation or outside. And the reason for that is being a super sister, you realize who is hypocritical within the religion and who isn't. And a lot of my peers were not living the way that um, they were supposed to. And I was of the impression very early on that even when I left the religion, that I still believed. I still was one of those that when I left, it was still the closest thing to the truth that I felt was ever going to be. And I felt like, let me just leave because let me leave knowing that I'm not living up to these standards. I'm not going to be going out in field service every week and then living this way the rest of the time. I'm not going to be preaching to everyone that this is how it's supposed to be and then have you see me in the club on a Saturday night. That's not how I want to live. And I didn't want to have friends like that. So that is why I didn't get along with a lot of people within the religion. And when they talk about the punishments that are handed out within this religion, they are not joking. I have been one of those people that has been what they call reproved. I am currently disassociated. I have disassociated myself on purpose. I have written the letter and everything. But as a child, I believe between like 18 and 19, um, I had sex for one of the first times, and my mother found out about it. And she made me tell the brothers. And to say that that was one of the most embarrassing parts of my life that I have ever had to deal with is an understatement. And I don't think I'll ever forgive her for something like that. Having to be made to sit in a room with 3 to 4 men around a table and talk to them about one of my first sexual experiences, and then have to promise to never do that again is bullshit. They're not qualified to talk to you about stuff like that. Um, if it had been a situation where I had been physically assaulted, they still wouldn't have been able to they still wouldn't have been qualified for something like that. And the fact that there were no sisters in that meeting whatsoever still boggles my mind. There is absolutely no reason why there should have been one woman, one minor in a room with 3 men talking about anything sexual. My mother wasn't even in the room, and that's wrong. They were not qualified. And for that reason, I was publicly reproved. And what that means is a brother walks up to the podium in a meeting in front of the entire congregation and lets them know that Sister so and so is on public reproof and they are not allowed to participate in any activities in the congregation. So that's some bullshit. So that lasts until they decide that you've done enough to take you off of that. I believe mine lasted for about 6 months. I just kinda kept my head down and, walked around and, did, other things, but, um, it was disgusting. It was really it was I think one of the first things that made me just, like, decide that this was not it for me. Um, I believe I was already on my way out anyway. Um, but the reason why I ended up leaving for good was because even though I may have thought that this religion, even though it was the closest I felt to the truth amongst all religions across the board, I didn't wanna live my life I didn't wanna bring disapproval to that. I didn't wanna live as a hypocrite. And so if I'm saying I'm a Jehovah's Witness, then I don't wanna be living in a way that's opposing of that. So that is why I left. And a few years back, I started watching all of these, XJW YouTube channels, and, um, I was seeing, all these people telling me about their experiences, and I empathize with all of you. I support all of you guys out there with your stories and your journeys, and I love everything you do, and I appreciate you bringing all the information that you're bringing out to find out that there are books out there that women are not allowed to touch, let alone I mean, to read, let alone touch, to be married to a ministerial servant or an elder, and to know that you can't even read the materials that they're being given on the behalf of what they're supposed to do, that's some bullshit. I still can't even talk I mean, I still can't even talk with my mother about these things for fear that we're never gonna speak again. Our biggest fights are over nothing but this. The way that I live my life right now, she can barely stomach it, but we won't even fight half as hard as we will when it comes to me saying that this is a cult. Our biggest fights are because of that. So I applaud all of you, which brings me to this whole Lloyd Evans thing. And please I apologize if I'm getting his name wrong, but I've been watching Lloyd for a while now. And I need to tell you guys, you need to give Lloyd a fucking break. Like, I mean, I get it. I get it. He bought some hookers. Like, he cheated on his wife. He's a fucking human being. You know what? I fucking get it. I understand. You guys think he's all of these things. He's not claiming to be anything more than just a human being. And to be honest, you don't know what the relationship is between him and his wife. They may have an arrangement. They may have the ability to do that. And what you do with the money, what he does with the money that you send him is his fucking business. He's not giving you an audit of all the money where it goes. He is putting the money, he's giving you what you've asked for every week, every month. All of the information is there. He is providing you with a service. So you really need to stop riding his dick right now. Like, give him a fucking break. He's not dabbling in child pornography. He's not hurting anyone else except for his wife, if he's even hurting that bitch. Pardon my language. If he's even hurting her, because I doubt she even gives a shit. If she did, she'd divorce him. You really need to get over yourselves. Like, if he has a sexual addiction, he will deal with that on his own. We as YouTube creators are not bound by anything except for if you guys want to give us money in order to help profit from our channel, then you are able and more willing to do that based on, and you can do that. But what we do with that money in order to keep our channels going is our bloody business. If he wants to go to Bali and like spend a whole week doing nothing but sitting around and ordering women and having them blow him all fucking day long, that's his business. He is allowed to enjoy his life. And what he decides to do with that is on him. He is not bound by any religious laws. He's not bound by your judgment nor your approval. So you really need to get over yourselves. It's not your business. If you are upset with how he morally lives his lives, you need to realize this is not about morals. Ethically, maybe it stinks. And maybe he should state somewhere what I choose to do with the money that you send me is my business. He's still providing you a service that you're still subscribing to every month. And you should just say thank you. As long as he is not hurting anyone and he's doing everything above board, everything is consensual, then you really have nothing to say. He's a grown-ass man. He's not Jimmy Swaggart. He's not some priest out there who is, you know, disrespect. He's not abusing children. He's not, you know, he's not doing anything wrong except getting laid. Allow the man to get laid. His wife's probably not doing it. And instead of divorcing her, who knows? I'm spitballing here. I'm really spitballing here at this point because I'm really not even interested in all the diatribe of all of this. I'm reading it on Twitter and he's sitting here defending himself and you guys are sitting here wanting to crucify a man who is no longer bound by the laws of such a restrictive religion. I do porn. I've done it before. People have been doing this. I mean, when we leave this religion, do you know how many people go buck wild? We go crazy after this. We want to experience, we want to explore life. We want to explore the world and we want to do things that we have never done before. And that means a lot. There are people that want to do magic. There are people that want to experiment with drugs. There are people who want to experience different forms of religion. There are people who want to experience different forms of sexuality. There are people who are, you know, straight, gay, bi, whatever. They want to experience life. Allow this man to experience life and stop judging him. He's not being racist. He's not being sexist. He's not experiencing any sort of, he's not doing anything that most of you don't want to do on your own. If we're being honest, are you jealous that he's doing this? Is that what's going on? Are you upset that you're not able to do what he does? Are you upset that his success has allowed him to be able to do that? Like him and your husband, like, are you upset that you're not able to do the things that he's doing? Why don't you guys find a couple to swing with? Like, why don't you go out and Do something with your grandchildren. Like, what is wrong with you? Why are you guys so bored with your life that you need to go fuck with him? Keep taking the Jehovah's Witnesses down. There's a lot that you could be doing in this world, except for worrying about where Lloyd's sticking his dick. Let the man get some. He probably hasn't had some in a while. Let the man breathe. But anyway, I digress. It takes a lot for you to leave a religion like this. It takes a lot for you to be who you want to be without apologies, and for us to be as transparent as we are in this sphere. It takes a lot to be unapologetic about it, especially when you have the judgments of the people in the world. You're going to lose a resource. He's been extremely pivotal in bringing you information that no one else has been able to give you. He's been pivotal in giving you tidbits of information and breaking news, and he's been doing this for years. Leave this nigga alone. Leave this fool alone. Let him do what he's going to do. If he wants to go on vacation, let him go on vacation. This is between him and his wife. This isn't our business. This is none of your fucking business. Leave this damn man alone. That's it. That's all I have to say about it. Leave the man alone. Leave Brittany alone. Leave Brittany alone. Lloyd, I got you, bro. All the caucasity here. This is like white outrage that I've never seen before in my life. And I mean, I don't mean to get racist about it or racial about it in any way, shape, or form, but this is like a lot of like outrage that doesn't need it. It's distracting. It's distracting. It's ridiculous. It's like it doesn't need to be here. You have a message to do, you have a job to do. Stop worrying about them. Don't worry about suing anybody. Let them say whatever the fuck they want to. Don't worry about suing anyone. Don't worry about any of this shit. You keep doing what you're doing. Let them talk. Okay? You're not losing any integrity. You know, you're doing your job. You worry about what you need to worry about with your wife and your family members. And if people want to lose respect for you, let them unsubscribe from your channel, and you let the rest of us continue to promote, to continue to subscribe to you, continue to donate to your channel. Shoot, I'll hook you up with some of my provider friends if you need to. Okay? Ones that will keep their mouths shut, except for when they are putting their dick in yours. And I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean. But I appreciate what you've done for the community. Um, Thank you for opening a lot of people's eyes, and I appreciate you. Thank you for allowing a lot of people to leave. Um, Thank you for informing a lot of those that are still in, about the truth, the real truth. And I appreciate you. I hope others do as well. Um, and yeah, peace out.